We're ready for our next panel. So let's call on Sami, Rodney. Are you here? Adriana, Dawson. There we go. And you can't see the backstage, but we have like a long list of panelists here. We are gonna come at a point that we hope that we can bring them all together. But they're here. Adriana, I think now you can turn your camera on. There we go. And Sami, there we go. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And thank you, Sandra, for joining in the welcome. And I'm just like, I'm still like shaking from, engaging and energy from everybody. So this is our first panel. You guys are kicking us off today, and we're going to be talking about how to find our bold, because it is important. Being bold and owning who we are is something that we need to do. And I'm always at awe at your career, seeing you as impactful and powerful change makers and Latino, leaders in your own areas and in your own industries. And I see that front facing, always taking risks, always moving forward, always making bold moves. And I just want to understand what the magic secret is behind of us, because I think a lot of us fear moving on, right? Fear is what stops us from doing things. The fear of failure, the fear of being judged, the fear of success. So many fears, and it seems that hasn't necessarily been your case, although I would love to hear about that. But in the end, you've all made an incredible impact, and I'm just so excited and so grateful for all of you to be here. So I would love to start by hearing, what have you considered your biggest bold move, so that our audience can start learning about you, instead of me reading a long list of accomplishments in a bio. And I would love to start with you, Rodney.
Thank you, Ileana. First, can I just say how floored, inspired, and just absolutely delighted I am to be among so many incredible Latinas in this virtual space. Like I'm starting to look over my shoulder a little bit. What am I doing here? This is an amazing assembly of incredible women, and so goodness, honored to be included among this incredible group. So thank you for the invitation. I think the boldest move, I thought about this question and thought about a number of bold moves in my life and career. I want to say I think the biggest, probably the boldest move, or one of them anyway, was the choice to believe in myself and my passion despite the evidence to the contrary that I would even be successful. I was delighted to hear from Sami, whom you're going to hear from in a moment, when I learned that she and I both worked for the same public relations agency years ago. And when she reached out to me after this, I had this aha moment, and I was in the corporate public relations space, and I left that to become a salsa dancer, which no one does if you care about making a living, and if you care about providing for your family, right? And so it was something that I did despite all the evidence of the contrary. And yet, I believe not just in the power of dance and the power of the arts, but the power of what my passion was for the community. And so I won't say much more than that, because I know we have other panelists to get to. But I think how I can sum that up is when you have a passion, when you have a vision for yourself and the contribution that you can make, listen to that voice, trust that instinct. The evidence may not be there. The evidence for success may not be visible, but when there's a voice inside, believe it, trust it. There may be a path. It may be a rocky path. It won't always be linear, but trust, because that was a gift that was placed in you by the universe. And it's always important to trust that. So I think that's probably the boldest move that I can say, that one of the boldest moves I've taken in my career.
Thank you, Rodney. Sami, how about you?
Oh my goodness. First off, hola todos. And it's so great to reconnect with you, Rodney. And what a perfect segue, because you know, big bold move is when you're young and you decide to quit a job. And as Rodney did, you know, we both survived the trauma of working for this agency and said, it's time to hit the road. But my biggest bold move, and in retrospect, I had to also sit with this one, I feel was back in 2004. In 2004, I was recently married, 34 years old, right? La jamona o la solterona de mi familia. And at that juncture, I was yearning, right, to have a family. And I was in New York City. I was the publisher of a national Latino magazine. And I'm like, how in the world we're going to do this, right? And so I wanted something else and decided that we were going to move to Orlando, but how, right? We were making really good money in New York. And I remember bumping into a colleague at the floor of American Media, and she tells me, hey, at the New York Post, they're looking for someone with your expertise. And I said, huh, I'm moving to Orlando. And she's like, no, están desesperado. You should really go for it. At that juncture in my career, I had already learned how to speak white male, right? Because I had grown within the ranks of publishing and had to kind of bulldoze my way in and just, you know, imitate, right, some of their behaviors and just learn how to articulate my value and, you know, speak with data points and either save them money or, you know, or earn them money because that's all they care about. But in any event, I told her, let me give her a shot. And I remember the email that I sent to who became my boss, Patrick Judge, and it went something along the lines of, my colleague told me you were looking for someone with these characteristics and I'm the chick for the job, right? Here's my resume, but there's a catch. And it said, I'm moving to Orlando. So if you're willing to facilitate me working from Orlando, traveling from there all over the country and come to New York once a month, right, to see you guys in person, then let's talk. Obviously, 2004, remote working wasn't a thing, right? But this is what I wanted. I wanted quality of life. New York City wasn't going to provide that with the long commutes and the long hours. And so after a series of interviews with like 6 people, they gave me the job. And I feel that that was the biggest bold move that I've done in my life. From a career standpoint, because then that positioned me into working very independently, which then informed my entrepreneurship journey.
Thank you, Sami. And we're starting to see some trends here, Adriana, how about you?
Ileana, hey everyone, hey friends, hola mi gente, what's going on? Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to join you. So the boldest move that I've made, I think, in my career, and there are many, but I think the one that I'm anchored in is when I allowed myself to reinvent myself. I came to the realization that I didn't have to just be one thing, right? And as I moved through my career and I recognized that during different seasons that I stepped into, I either stalled or there were haters or there were things sort of in my way. And so I had to learn the art of reinventing myself and really embracing my gifts and figuring out how to continue to share my gifts with the world and what that meant and what that flavor looked like, you know, and starting to feel really comfortable with co-creating and co-designing my own career map and not waiting for anybody to tap me on the shoulder to validate me and tell me what my next career move needed to be. So again, I think for me, the art of reinvention and the art of activating my professional swag was a big bold move that I don't think I was even prepared for, but I think I was tired of waiting for other individuals to tell me what I was great at. And I allowed myself to embrace my brilliance and make bold moves on my own. And whoever wanted to roll with me got to roll with me, and those who didn't got rolled over.
I love that. I love that. And what I'm hearing is basically, we need to allow ourselves to move out of that comfort zone, despite the expectations of others or what others have, told us that the success path is, or should be, and then allowing ourselves to jump into it and just move on. That's so encouraging and inspirational to hear. Not as easy to do, though. Not as easy to do. Sami, you are the host and co-producer of an award-winning podcast. I have something to say. I've been a guest at your show. If people have not been a guest at her show, I truly invite you to reach out to her or to hear her podcast. It's an incredible podcast. Because it really talks about these topics that are not, they're on edge, right? You talk about the things that maybe people are not expecting to, but it's all about creating this awareness and hopefully inviting people to do exactly what we're doing here, right? To step into the boldness of their lives, to embrace who they are or their beliefs, whatever it is, but to do it with purpose. So I would love to hear from you, like, how did that come about? Because I know that that's been an integral part of who you are and the impact that you create.
So you know what? I was and thank you for all that. I was on a board of a local arts organization, and during my first meeting, of course, I was like dropping bombs, right? I was like questioning everything and just doing what we're supposed to be doing, right? What Ms. Huerta said, right? Show up and advocate, and right. And so when I was leaving, and the marketing director of the organization called me, young white male, millennial, and he's like, hey, I was just at the meeting. Can we meet? We became fast friends. And 6 months later, he tells me, and this was almost 5 years ago, he says, what's on your bucket list that you'd like to do, but you feel don't have the technical ability to execute? And I said, a podcast, right? Because I didn't see many Latino voices, really, right? Not even people of color doing much podcasting back then. It was kind of still new. And so I said, he said, let's do it. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. And this podcast has been such a gift because I just ask questions and then I learn, right? From all of the guests. I've been able to meet amazing people of all different walks and backgrounds, right? With different perspectives. And it's just, to me, it's been kind of like going to school, right? And we're having fun through it, but it's also given me the gift of business. So during the pandemic, one of our clients called and said, hey, I need you to share the magic sauce. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she's like, could you produce a podcast for us? And then all of a sudden, this right technical skill that we had and our coaching in how to right conduct the podcast came in handy to support a client and bring in the cash, right? And so what I'm saying is it's never too late to learn a new skill. And we need to use our talents to create what doesn't exist, if needed, to amplify our voices, to, become a conduit, for change, and to really help people, really unsung heroes, people that have so much knowledge to share, to have that platform to do so. And so I love having the podcast, and you're welcome to listen in, and yeah, it's been a gift in just so many ways.
I love that, because in a way it's being bold and doing something that you didn't know how to do, and now it's become a thing and it's creating change. And I love what you're saying. It's all about the learning, right? And especially in this fast-paced environment where things are created all the time that we didn't know even exist, that we couldn't even imagine. And now literally the world, the universe is our oyster. What's the phrase, But the point is, the things that we didn't think were possible can now be possible. Thank you so much. Rodney, gratitude plays a big part of who you are today. I know that, we've talked a lot about this. I continue to learn and be grateful because of that. And I would love for you to tell us, like, how do especially leaders and the audience that is out there, like, how does gratitude play a big part in helping us make those bold moves and overcome that fear?
A move that is bold by definition requires faith. If it didn't require faith, it wouldn't be bold. If you knew what was on the other side of that choice, if you knew what was on the other side of that move, it would require no faith, it would require no trust, and therefore would not be defined by definition as bold. And so I think one of the only way we can apply that faith, the only way we can exercise and frankly strengthen that faith is, in my humble opinion, from a place of gratitude, from a place of thankfulness, because we often are visited by the stresses of life, by the stresses of career, by the stresses of family, and these stresses, if we're not careful, have the potential to choke us, to create anxiety, to ignite the stories and the internal narratives that keep us stuck in a particular place. I'm not good enough. I'm not this enough. I'm not fill in the blank enough. And for me, the most important antidote, the most important response to those feelings that are gonna come, they're always gonna be there. And I can't tell you better than has already been said by the speakers who've come ahead of us, is that the challenges are always gonna be there. The roadblocks and the obstacles are always gonna be there, but you create spaciousness from a place of gratitude. When you start with acknowledging what you have, you create space for what is possible. I learned that lesson in a very real way when I hit really difficult financial straits, partly as a result of my career change, partly as a result of poor decisions I made with my money and some other things and some other circumstances in my life. And what I learned is that when I was focused on what I had, the world around me changed because I was focused on what I had. And now when you make room for when you acknowledge what you have, the universe creates space for you to receive more. And more can look like a lot of things. More can look like relationships. More can look like resources. More can look like peace, more peace in your life. And so I guess my biggest entreaty to anybody here is to start and to approach any challenge that you're facing from a position of gratitude, from a place of thankfulness. You don't have to be thankful for every circumstance in your life, but in every circumstance in your life, you can be grateful. And I think that is that's a really, really important thing for us to remember and to remind ourselves of. So I really appreciate the question.
Thank you, Rodney. And I have to say that between you and Luisa Mendoza, who's going to be one of our power talks later today, you're always in my mind when I don't think I can be thankful or grateful. Both of your voices come here to say, no, there's always a silver lining. There's always something to be grateful. So I appreciate both of you so, so much. Adriana, many people in our audience I know are first generation Latinas and Latinos. I am first generation Latina, and that shift in culture has a huge impact. Like, we think we know it all, and then we come here and we realize that the world is completely different than what we thought of, right? And that stops us. That really stops us from being who we are or who we're meant to be, starting to adapt ourselves to something that we're not. And then that just stops our tracks and hits our self-confidence. And like, we can go on and all the negative impact that can have. So from your point of view, like, and your work and your personal experience elevating underrepresented communities, how can we turn it around and embrace that so that we can then grow versus being at a barrier or a challenge in our lives?
No, I also appreciate the question, Eliana, and I'm stepping into my response with an attitude of gratitude, Rodney. I wouldn't have thought that was the case when I was going through the struggle, because the struggle is real, but being a first generation Latina, or a first generation college student, or a first generation professional is something I've been talking about more so frequently, because we tend to step into these big spaces with a scarcity mindset, right? And so stepping into these spaces, coming in or approaching it with a deficit mindset because of all the things we've talked about. We either don't think we're worthy, or the circumstances we've had to navigate around have attempted to strip us of our dignity or of our voice. But there comes a point that you have to lean into your cultural fluency and recognize that your lived experience, your swag, the perspective that you have is valuable. And it is very much being appreciated by corporate America and other entities, because we have a perspective that they need as they're recognizing that our consumerism and our buying power is growing exponentially, but they don't understand necessarily our flavor and how we move. And so I would suggest to all of us is lean into that cultural fluency. It is a superpower. It is a competency that you will not find in a job description. So it is your job to let your employers know that you have a skill set that is magical, that lots of other folks may not necessarily have. So that, you know, I would just lend that. And I would also say, you know, elevate that swag, right? Elevate that sort of professional flavor and sazon that you have with you. And when we step into these professional environments, because we are first generation professionals, we often are challenged because the space hasn't been decoded for us. The secret sauce hasn't been shared with us. So we're scrappy, we're resourceful. We've learned how to make $1 out of 15 cents. So we'll figure it out, right? But it's important to recognize that early, that folks won't necessarily decode to make it easier for you. So continue to build your sisterhood circle, find your network, set up your professional board of directors, be bold and make it happen.
I just love that. And I love that you're mentioning, well, one about the be scrappy and being proud, Sammy. Thank you for jotting it on the chat. But also this thought that we're not, like, alone we can do a lot of things, right? We're told that we're Superman and Superwoman since we're young and that we can do everything. But you're right, it's the power of community and of a community that lifts you up, not the community that pulls you down, not the community that's always judging you and telling you that you can't and that's not possible, but the community that really encourages you. And maybe they don't have the answer, but at least they're your cheerleaders that push you away. So you're absolutely right. And I think this is very important for me personally. I lived 7 years in this country without a community, and I did not know that. And it was until I surrounded myself with all of you that I really saw the difference. So thank you for sharing that, because I think we're then able to embrace that power and not be afraid or not be guilty or not feel ashamed of being scrappy, because that's actually one of the values that we bring to the work that we do, right? So thank you so much for sharing that. And we're literally in the last 10 minutes of our talk. I feel like I have so many other questions to ask all of you, but we're running ahead, we're moving ahead. I would love to hear some call to actions. What do we do from here? Where do we move from here, all of us, so that as of today, each of us come out with, you know, some homework, something that we can make a difference for ourselves, for our families, for the people that depend on us. And I would love to start with you, Sami.
My advice and call to action is to know your numbers, know your power with the numbers, because that's white male speech, right? And so we need to know that if we were a standalone country, we'd be the 5th largest GDP in the world. That in the next 10 years, 78% of net new workers in this country are going to be Latino, okay? That already over 50% of students K through 12 in most counties in major cities are of Latino descent, okay? That we are 1 in every 5 people in the US. And we can go on, okay? Look into your community. There's plenty of resources to find the data and know where you stand. And then drop these bombs everywhere you are. Speak truth to power, okay? And sustain, right? That will support your advocacy, okay? And then I'll leave you with this. I had an epiphany just 2 weeks ago about the word heritage in Spanish, herencia. right? Herencia means obviously heritage, but it also means inheritance. And all the numbers, all the evidence indicates, okay, that this heritage of hard work from our ancestors, pre-Columbine knowledge and cultural traditions and all of that, right, is our heritage. But we are also going to have la herencia nuestra, que es América, ¿verdad? We're going to inherit America because that's where we're headed. And so I want to leave you with that and just stand in that knowledge, right? That that this is it. It's always been home, and it's going to continue to be home.
And I think it's our responsibility, right? We can't move away from this responsibility that we have. To your point, the future is Latino, whether we like it, whether we don't, whether we agree with it or whether we don't, it is. And it's up to all of us. I love that you call out those numbers, Sami, because for me, they were new news about a year ago, and now I can't stop seeing them because it is our responsibility to use those and to know that that's the impact. And that's the legacy that we're leaving forward to our kids, to our family, and to those that are coming behind us. So thank you for calling out those numbers. Rodney.
My call to action is to know and serve your gifts. Know your gifts, serve your gifts. What the pandemic taught us is that skills and talent, the market and the need for those things can shift at the drop of a hat. We learned during the pandemic that certain skill sets, all of a sudden that were considered valuable for the space of that pandemic, were no longer valuable. What did we need? We needed what we called the essential worker that we didn't actually compensate and appreciate as much as we should have. All of a sudden, those skill sets became really important. We appreciated the nurse like we've never appreciated the nurse before. We appreciated the teacher like we've never appreciated the teacher before. But what the market says is the market determines what skills and talents are in demand at any given point. And we don't always control that. But what we do have is we do have our gifts. Your gifts, your God-inspired, your universe-inspired gifts are the things that no one can take away from you, that someone will always need no matter what the circumstances are. And how do you know it's a gift? Well, you know it's a gift if it doesn't come hard to you, right? If it comes easy to you, it's a gift. We're attracted to apple trees because of the apple. We're attracted to orange trees because of the orange, right? We are attracted to the trees that give the fruit because we want the fruit of those trees. And so we are all trees that have a fruit to give, that have something beautiful to give to the community. Whether you get compensated for it or not, hopefully you will. But even if you don't, if you're giving your gift, you're living in your purpose. And ultimately, when you're living in your purpose, you are you're living a life that's well lived. So my call to action is to find, identify, and serve your gift, because the world needs your gift.
Thank you. I don't have anything to follow up on that. Drop the mic. Thank you. Adriana, close us off.
Woo! All right, mi gente. And that was amazing. Sami, Rodney, I appreciate that. Hard to follow, but I would offer two threads in my call to action. Call to action number one, ladies, perfect the brag bag, right? So while Rodney was saying, recognize your gifts, you recognize them, but you tell people about them, right? You need to let the world know who you are and what you do. So I would offer that those are two distinct things. So knowing what they are, but you have a responsibility to let people know about your greatness. So when you perfect the brag bag, you're just stating facts. This is what I do. This is the impact I generate. Like, this is how I can be leveraged here, there, or over there. So make it easy for folks and drop the knowledge on their lap so they know why they need you. That's number one. And number two, continue to build your personal brand. Who are you? What do you do? What do you stand for? You know, what energizes you? And then make sure that as you're building your brand and creating visibility for yourself, and you're signaling to the market, whatever it is that you want to signal, whether you're ready to switch careers, whether you want to do public speaking, whether you want to sit on a board, make sure you begin to craft your narrative because it's your story to tell, right? So figure out what that narrative looks like, perfect it with the brag bag, and figure out what that personal brand and that narrative is going to look like, and activate, mi gente. Let's go.
I love that. We have some incredible also comments coming in. Olga Patarroyo, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. Then take inspired action. Jean, stop the self-deprecating comments to fit in, because that's so important. And Stella, gonna put some diamonds on my grab bag. I think that's really, really important. And many, many more comments. Really appreciate your time, for being here, for sharing all of your stories and the wisdom that you bring through your journey, because we truly appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Sandra, who is next? Thank you. Thank you, everybody.